can we talk about the NAR thing?
Everyone's losing their ever-loving mind.
Ever-loving mind about the NAR thing.
You know, I really did not see this lawsuit coming. I will admit that. But what I have seen coming for over 10 years. And you can be my witness that I have been talking about this.
I am a witness.
Is that the way that agents have done business would not be able to continue to carry on without changes.
Can you go into detail?
And that agents would have to, what I always said was that they will either be on one of two sides. They will either, one, turn to a flat fee type model.
Right.
And they will be making less than everyone else, or they were going to be on the opposite side where they were going to go charge more than everyone else and be a luxury, like creme de la creme agent where their value proposition is so high.
Right.
And they're zoned in on that so well and so good at articulating that value proposition that they're going to charge more, not just mediocre, more than the norm of what we see now.
Yeah.
And I feel like these are the two camps that are going to happen, and everyone in the middle is going to get eaten alive and probably have to leave the business. Now that is a strong stance to take.
Or be forced into one of those camps.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying if they choose to stay in the middle, they're going to get eaten alive.
Yeah.
Now, I, of course, would, am going to choose the right side. I've already been in that camp before this change has even happened where...
Well, yeah, because you were teaching classes on how to get like 7% versus 6 or 8% even when
listing
you were...
agents, even a long time ago.
A long time ago.
But there was a value proposition that was so high, and it was articulated in a way that people would choose that. It's no different than, why do people pay for Mercedes when a Ford could get them from point A to
Saturn.
When a Saturn, when a Kia, when I don't know what it is. Mine was a Ford Festiva, which is like roller skates.
Smart car.
A smart car. That can get you from point A to point B for cheap or inexpensive. So why do people buy a Lamborghini or a Mercedes when they're both getting you to the same place?
Because they can.
Because of the experience.
As we rock our Honda Accord.
Our paid off Honda Accord.
That's right. Yeah.
So, although that has nothing to do with the NAR settlement, it does in a way, because the way that we're going to do business is now being forced to change. And to me, it really will force people into one of these two camps.
Yeah.
Even though that's not what they're saying in the settlement, that is going to be a byproduct or consequence in my mind to that settlement.
It's always interesting to watch when something like this happens, a major in an industry. The first thing is like, it's a freak out moment. And then it's...
Well, nobody likes change.
No one likes change. But then it's like, okay, well, let's just wait and see. And then we'll figure it out. It's probably not going to be as bad as we think it is. And it's not. It's just, like you said, it changes the way things have been done. So brokerages are already talking about it and figuring out how they're going to deal with it. But what would you do to deal with it?
Well, they have from now until July to figure that out. Still has to pass in court. But it should. It's all about more disclosure. There are some challenging parts of the settlement, and then there are some positives to realtors to this settlement. One of them being which you've got to have a buyer rep agreement in place, and that should have been the case for years. And yet agents just been taking people around.
I gotta say, when they said you're going to need to have a buyer in place, I'm like, I thought, aren't you supposed to? Like, I don't
on
remember.
Our team, you will have one.
I was going to say, I don't remember that being an option.
Yeah.
Did you? What is your first? Because you had last where I learned the word first substantive, conversation. That needs to happen. As far as disclosures and everything. I don't comprehend an agent who is willing to take somebody out without one. That to me does that, like, are you so, to me it looked like you're so desperate for business that you are willing to do something that in very obviously puts you in no negotiated ability whatsoever. Like at any time they can walk away and you've got nothing.
Yeah, and what you do is the mindset of the agent was, well, I'm afraid if I have them sign it that they won't do it.
Right.
Or, I know a lot of agents say a lot of different things, so I don't want to pretend I know every single reason the agents use for that. But it's actually not in the best interest of the agent, obviously.
Right.
But it's actually not in the best agent of the buyer to not have a buyer rep
Not in the best
agreement.
interest of the buyer.
No, because there's fiduciary obligations that you don't have to give them without one of those signed.
Right.
And two, there's actually stuff on the agent side that we're not supposed to give them unless they're a client, and they're not a client if they don't have one of those signed.
Well, I think that what you just said to me is more indicative of the challenge of this, is that I think that there's a lot of agents out there who don't feel like they have as much power inside of a relationship. To me, it's more about the relationship dynamics that you engage with someone. And if you don't understand your position in that dynamic, then you will always take the submissive role, which is, I'll do whatever it takes. And even that is a detriment to myself.
Yeah.
If
detriment
I understand
to yourself and the customer.
Right. If I understand, hey, I need you to sign this. Well, I don't want to. Okay. So if you don't want to sign it, there's things I can't tell you.
But not just that.
I don't represent you. Just FYI, if you're okay with it.
That just shows you right there what you said, is that agents are having trouble articulating their value.
Yeah.
This is where you have until July to get laser focused with your brokerage, with classes, with a coach, whatever it needs to be,
we're coaching
on your value proposition for why someone needs a buyer rep agreement. And then we can also talk about the listing side, because this new change does not mean that sellers cannot participate in paying the buyer's agent. It means it's going to be different now.
Right.
Okay, and I think that's where everybody's freaking out. They're like automatically going to the fact that, well, buyers aren't going to be able to pay that. They could barely pay their down payment or what have you. And in a lot of cases, they're right when they're saying that, But that means they're assuming that there aren't going to be any other ways to arrange this.
Well, yeah. And then this is where I get a challenge with social media, is that you're already seeing people who want to be first versus people who want to be accurate. And
as far as the news goes.
As far as the news goes.
Sure.
And so you have a whole bunch of people on short form social media, TikTok, whatever, Instagram Reels, that are saying, you no longer have to pay for, this.
Your buyer's
save
agent.
you money, Well, that's true, but you will still be putting your home in a not a great position if you don't listen to your realtor and instead you get your advice from TikTok.
Exactly. Don't even get me started on news like that, because it's all clickbaity, and it makes it, it makes agents grab onto that and panic.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you there's no reason to panic. There is a way to pivot if you know your value, okay? And you have time to work on that.
Yeah.
Which you should know anyway, even before this came out. So this is a good thing that is going to force you into knowing your value. But to be clear, I think how this all plays out is 100% going to rely on what the agent's reaction and brokerage's reaction is to this now.
Right.
When sellers hire us, they're hiring you to give them advice on what's going to be the best exposure for their house and what's going to get them the best price for their house.
Right.
They care about what they walk away with. Let me say that again. They care way more about what they're walking away with than what commissions they're paying.
That's true.
That's what matters.
Well, also, and if they are focused on the commissions, then it's our responsibility to put them into perspective of, you can focus on this, but that's not in the best interest for you. That's a drop in the bucket compared to X, Y, or Z.
So I think what we're going to see is a lot of classes, a lot of education around the fact that seller concessions are still going to be allowed. Seller concessions are allowed now. It's just not typically where the commission is put.
Right.
But some seller concessions will be allowed, and a seller concession is a negotiated amount that can be allotted to where it's negotiated to
wherever,
as long as it's disclosed and negotiated. So that might very well be a seller concession to the buyer's agent. And
Right.
I think that's what will be happening a lot of the time. So that buyer's agents are still able to work for buyers and bring them to homes and get that seller the maximum amount of exposures to buyers, so they have the best chance at the highest price.
So if I was an agent, given the fact that I do know my sales proposition and what I bring to the table and how I talk to my buyers, and as a listing agent when I'm doing that role, how I talk to my sellers, I would be excited for the change, because if I'm speaking, greedily, then it allows me to have less competition out there, because there are some agents that don't. If I'm on the fence as an agent, what was all that? Then I would want to get with somebody. Hey, I need help. I think that's a struggle for agents, is to admit when they don't know something and go find resources for that and go find help for that.
And I think brokerages will, but for sure need to step up and have some massive classes around this for all of their agents at every single level, both on the listing side and on the buy side.
Yeah.
But commissions have always been negotiable.
Yeah.
Always. This is just going to make it different on where and when we can disclose. For example, they can no longer put the buyer's cooperating commission in the MLS.
Yeah.
That does not mean that our own websites can't state that. They can't tell us what our websites will say.
Right.
But that alone, them putting that in that settlement, that verbiage, lets you know it's not that the seller can't have a concession for the buyer. It's that the seller can't advertise that in the MLS. So we just need to calm down.
You just need to calm down.
But is it going to change? Yes, it's going to change. I'm not trying to act like it's going to stay the same as it's always been, because clearly it is not.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to do things differently.
My worry.
Okay, we need to go behind this guy.
I'm bombarded with pebbles over here. My concern has always been when brokerages have classes, it's on the legality of it, right? What you can do legally. And where I feel agents need more help is in understanding their positioning, their language of sales, how to talk to someone, how to market this, the marketing side. That's always second, always has been.
And maybe even the scripting.
The scripting, right. Yeah. It's always been, here's legally, we got to explain to you, we're going to have classes on what you can and can't say legally. And that's a different field than, that's how you market it. And so that's always my biggest worry with agents who they may know legally and understand what they can and can't do. Okay, but how do I do that? How do I say that?
Yeah.
I know I can do this, but how do I communicate that? And that's where I see some classes or some brokerages not knowing how to do that and falling short to their agents because they simply don't know how to market, because that's not their focus.
Yeah.
They don't teach agents how to market.
Well, it now needs to be your focus.
Right.
Because it's not a negotiable to know your value proposition. It's not a negotiable to just, in my opinion, it's not okay to just default to being a flat fee agent so that you can survive. We need to thrive here, right? But I don't want to sugarcoat things. At the beginning of this talk, we've talked about how everyone in the middle who's not choosing one of the two sides is probably not going to make it.
You said
I thought
alive.
that
You said
eaten
devoured.
alive, devoured.
Picked over.
I don't want to sugarcoat things and say that that's not true. It is going to be true at some point. This settlement, I thought the industry was going to change even before this came about. I could not have predicted this lawsuit, but I did predict that this was going to happen because change is inevitable.
The only thing that is consistent is change.
100%. And with technologies, with the way people like to communicate now with agents, with some agents not being very good at their job, if I dare say that.
Ah, look at you putting it out there.
Not everybody is good at what they do.
Yeah.
It has made it to where there will be these two camps. So I'm not trying to sugarcoat things and say that that isn't still the case.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for those that choose to articulate their value proposition, they're actually going to excel with these changes, because that's what influential agents do. They take these changes and they pivot. And I think in the coming months, as we start to see what will these laws look like exactly, because we've been trickled out what this settlement says, we will be able to create some better scripting And we get to choose as an industry how we're going to react to this, and that is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's deep, Ed. So good. So what advice do you give agents who are, like, because agents who are adaptable will adapt, and they just have to make sure that they're looking at both sides, the legal side and the marketing side. But what about the agents who are either brand new and they've never had to deal with this, or the agents that have been in for a while that maybe aren't as pliable to change as some agents are? What advice do you give?
Well, you're not going to have a choice to change.
Yeah.
If this lawsuit doesn't make you change, more changes will come after this. If they think this is the last thing that's going to happen, there's major changes coming to our industry. So my advice to agents, whether they're brand new or experienced, doesn't matter. While you're waiting for these laws to be articulated out better to us, and while our scripting is going to get better before July, what you could be doing right now is you need to take out a piece of paper and do an exercise, or on your computer. I know I said paper. Whatever makes you feel better, you need to do an exercise. One for listings, one for buyers. And I want you to articulate in writing what makes you different than other agents on each side. You can't put it all together. So if you're working with a listing or a seller, why should they use you?
Right.
What makes you different than other agents? And what services do you provide? And what experience will you provide to make sure that it feels like white glove service? Not like just the fiduciary obligations. That's the minimum that we should be doing. I'm talking about, what is it that makes you that Mercedes? What is it that makes you that dealership that gives you that different experience where you're spending $300,000 on a car and not $30,000 on a car?
Okay, so real quick though, which is that's great advice, but in my head, because I've done so many of these consultations, I ask that question. So what sets you apart? What makes you different? And it's always, well, we treat our clients like family. We go, we're very punctual. That's not what we're talking about. So is there any way you could give, like, because I know you teach this, is there any way, like, you just give one or two examples of things that they could do, or things that you did that were amazing?
Well, there's just too much to say in a car chronicle.
Oh, I know, I
this
get that.
should be something where I sat down and I took our transaction checklist.
Right.
Okay, just what you would normally give your transaction coordinator, even. Like, what are the steps that have to happen from transaction to close? And I amplified that. And I looked at, okay, what in between these steps that is normal? Yes, we're organized. Yes, we're punctual. But that's the minimum, you guys. We
You're
should do
supposed
that.
to be. Yeah.
You should treat them like gold, right? But what are the things we're doing in between these steps, or in these steps, that make it even better than what most agents do? So if you're not sure what it is, you could just ask yourself, okay, what do most agents do here? And what can I do that's extra? What can I do that makes this feel like, instead of a Kia experience, no offense against Kias, because, I'm all about paid off cars regardless. But if you go into a Kia dealership, I guarantee that experience will be different than being in a Mercedes dealership or a Lamborghini dealer. So what is it that you are doing to create an experience that is different, and just go through each of those steps? And we actually took it deeper, not just transaction to close. We're thinking about from the second they call us.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted you to talk about, is like that. Even something simple is dumb, but even getting to know their favorite drink and having that in the car.
Yes, we always had a cooler of their favorite drinks, not just generic drinks that anybody might like. We knew their favorite drink, or maybe their iced coffee was waiting for them exactly how they drink it when we go to showings. Having little things like that can make a big difference, but amplify that times 100 if they're having different experiences like that throughout the transaction.
Right.
All right, we're gonna eat some breakfast.
Breakfast. Good talk. Breakfast good.
Delish.
So we're having breakfast. Amber is concerned about the business. Our business? No. She's concerned about their business. Why are you concerned about their business?
We go here quite a bit now, less since we moved, but it's one of our favorite breakfast places.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around and there's hardly anybody sitting there. And it used to be just jam-packed all the time, it felt like.
Yeah.
Now I realize that Mondays and days like that are slow, but it's not a Monday. So I'm looking around going, uh-oh. And it's been like that for a while. And restaurants have such a low profit margin that I get worried, especially breakfast places. They seem to sell off so quick and then they change, and I don't want them to.
Because people don't like change.
And Jason's looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm thinking this. And he's like, why are you thinking about that? And I was like, well, I know the owner. And he's like, barely. I met her at the restaurant when I'm eating there. Like, I barely know her, but I'm still worried about her. That's just how my brain works.
But that's not what you said.
What did I say?
Because when I said, why are you worried about that? You said, because I have empathy. That was the actual first response.
Well, that is why I care.
Oh.
I'm a business owner to business owner.
Yeah.
It's tough out in these streets.
It is. It's tough out in this hood.
Versus, then you told me, you barely know her. And I said, don't judge me. That's a real conversation. But anyway. And you said, interesting that you're thinking about things like that. Whereas last time we did a Car Chronicles, I was thinking about this.
It was this one.
Oh, this one. So right before. Okay. This Car Chronicles, I'm thinking about that and worried about her and her family and their business. And you're worried about, and not worried, but you're thinking about what?
Well, on our way here, we're at a median and we were stopped very briefly, and there were these two like good sized rocks, probably the size of softballs. And they didn't match the environment. One was white with these black specks all over it, and it was round and smooth like a river rock. And the other one was like this rust colored, almost like a lava rock. It was ginormous, and they were next to each other, and they didn't match the surrounding areas. I looked across the street and there was none of that, and I was thinking, how'd they get there?
You're thinking, how'd they get there? Why are they there?
Why are they there?
What is their purpose?
How did that land?
This is the difference between you and I, to a T. There could not be a better example. You didn't just think about those rocks and why were there. You Sherlock Holmes know what color was it, what specs was on there, what colors they were surrounding. I couldn't tell you anything about my surroundings except the person there that needs my sympathy, apparently, because their business is making less money right now.
Yeah. Neurodivergent, neurotypical.
Neurotypical. Well, I'd also like to say, as a side note, since we're on a random trail right now, we had a speaking engagement last week and a few the week before. And every time we're at one, we hear the women. It doesn't matter how I talk to them on stage and say, you got to stop worrying about how you look on video. And it doesn't matter how many reasons I give them, how logical they are, how emotional they are. There's just some that are like, no, it matters. And I'm like, okay. Jason films me when I have no makeup on in the car.
I do. Because you're
Put on a little lip gloss because I was like, oh no, here we go.
But I imagine that phrase in and of itself probably just annoys women because you're like gorgeous.
Oh,
you're factually attractive.
Oh, well, you're my husband, so.
No, that's not true, because if you weren't attractive, I mean, I still love you, but...
Well, that's not helping them get over their fear. I was trying to help them get over their fear. What the heck, man?
I'm just saying
you're doing the opposite here.
It's not a biased statement. It's a factual statement. Like,
but they're all beautiful too, and so it's like you can get a good point across and reach an audience even when you're not wearing makeup or your hair's not done. Or
well, that's one way to look at it. From my perspective, how you look is how you look. Now, everyone has a unique quality about them that makes them beautiful, but I don't think that you have to be full-fledged makeup, in order to do films. If we take a good hard look at ourselves, we could always pick ourselves apart.
Yeah, but that's really not the point, is it?
That's not the point.
It shouldn't be the point.
Right.
It should be about just getting your message.
It should be about
out.
the message you're getting across. So, yeah.
That's a whole different thing. I'm sorry I got off on a tangent, but
No,
I was just
okay.
looking at myself in the mirror going, what? I don't think I I think I've only had makeup on once in the Car Chronicles.
This is because so we were at this event. Amber's talking to a pack of women that just surrounded her after she got done speaking, because that's what always happens. Now that's why I don't speak anymore, because
you don't like that.
I don't like that. I don't like that. So I had one person come up to me, which was great. I can handle that. But it's interesting that you said that, because I don't think I told you this. Is that I was talking to one, and this other agent comes up, and we were talking about video, and this one agent was trying to figure out how she does it, because she's also got 3 kids, and this other agent was saying, I just worry about how I look. I know I shouldn't, but I worry about it. And I said, before I thought about it, is you will worry yourself into extinction.
That's good.
That's what I said. A little bit harsh. Maybe it wasn't the whole everyone's beautiful thing, but it's you will worry yourself, or you will make excuses to your extinction.
You could say that about everything in your business that you're just worried about.
And so I appreciate the fact that, because you're right, they shouldn't worry about how they look. They shouldn't worry about their accents, if they have a thick accent or what have you, because we've heard the gamut. But all they are, as coaches, and just to let you guys know, they're excuses. That's all it is. That's how I see it.
And excuses are just lies.
Lies in disguise.